Mr. Begley and members of the board, I do have several items for your consideration this evening. Under letter D, other items for board action, I will draw your attention to the fact that we have separated a few items out, so we will have separate, we'll do these one at a time. So number one, recommend a change to the starting time of the organizational special meeting on January 8th, 2024 from 6 p.m. to 5:30 p.m. Number two, recommend the approval of a special board meeting on January 8th, 2024, beginning at 6:15 p.m. at Fairfield Senior High School in the Catherine D. Milligan Community Room, 8800 Holden Boulevard, for the purpose of board professional development. Number three, recommend the approval of the following board policies as listed, letters A through G. Those are the items that I have for your consideration at this moment.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. I'll entertain a motion to accept these recommendations.
So moved.
Second.
Mrs. Birding Miller, Mr. Clark. Any discussion? Mrs. Lane, please call the roll.
Mrs. Birding Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Clark?
Yes.
Mrs. Shorter? Yes. Mr. Begley?
Yes.
Mr. Begley and members of the board, I have two additional items for your consideration, also under letter D. Number four, before I start reading it, I just want there to be a clear understanding of what you're voting on this evening. So this is the resolution determining to proceed to levy an additional tax in excess of the 10 mil limitation. This is the second part of the process to what you did at the special board meeting at the end of November. This is not related to the statement of facts and the proposed reductions. This is to move forward to proceed with the levy. So number four, recommend approval of the resolution determining to proceed to levy a tax in excess of the 10 mil limitation be placed on the March 19th, 2024 ballot. Resolution determining to proceed to levy an additional tax in excess of the 10 mil limitation. Whereas this Board of Education has heretofore declared the necessity of levying an additional tax in excess of the 10 mil limitation for the benefit of this school district pursuant to the provisions of Section 5705.21 of the Ohio Revised Code for the purpose of current operating expenses. And whereas pursuant to Section 5705.03 of the Ohio Revised Code, this Board of Education has heretofore certified to the county auditor a resolution requesting the county auditor to certify to this Board of Education the following matters and has received from the county auditor the following amounts. A, the total current tax valuation or taxable value of the school district, which is $2,316,859,300. Letter B, the levy's estimated effective rate expressed in dollars, rounded to the nearest dollar, for each 100,000 of the county auditor's appraised value, which is $242. And C, the dollar amount of revenue, rounded to the nearest dollar, that would be generated by 6 9/10 mils for each $1 of taxable value, which is $15,986,329 per year. Now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Education of the Fairfield City School District, herein the school district, County of Butler, 2/3 of all the members elected thereto concurring, Section 1, that it is hereby declared that the amount of taxes which may be raised in this school district within the 10 mil limitation by levies on the current tax list will be insufficient to provide an adequate amount for the necessary requirements of this school district. Section 2, that pursuant to the provisions of Section 5705.21 of the Ohio Revised Code, it is necessary to levy an additional tax in excess of such 10 mil limitation for the purpose of current operating expenses at the rate not exceeding 6 9/10 mils for each $1 of taxable value, which amounts to $242 for each $100,000 of the county auditor's appraised value for a continuing period of time. The additional tax shall be levied upon the entire territory of the school district, and the ballot measure shall be submitted to the entire territory of the school district. The school district is located in Butler County, Ohio. Section 3, that the question of the adoption of said additional tax levy shall be submitted to the electors of the school district at the election to be held on March 19, 2024. And if said additional tax levy is approved by a majority of said electors, such additional tax shall first be placed upon the 2024 tax list and duplicate for first collection in calendar year 2025. Section 4, that the form of the ballot to be used at said elections shall be substantially as follows, subject to any change from the applicable Board of Elections and/or the Ohio Secretary of State. Proposed tax levy, additional Fairfield City School District, County of Butler, a majority affirmative vote is necessary for passage. An additional tax for the benefit of the Fairfield City School District for the purpose of current operating expenses that the county auditor estimates will collect $15,986,329 annually at a rate not exceeding 6.9 mils for each $1 of taxable value, which amounts to $242 for each $100,000 of the county auditor's appraised value for a continuing period of time commencing in 2024, first due in calendar year 2025. Section 5, that the treasurer of this Board of Education be and is hereby directed to certify a copy of this resolution to the Board of Elections not later than 4 p.m. of the 90th day before the date of said election, and to notify said Board of Elections to cause notice of the election on the question of levying said additional tax to be given as required by law. Section 6, that it is found and determined that all formal actions of this Board of Education concerning and relating to the adoption of this resolution were adopted in an open meeting of this Board of Education, and that all deliberations of this Board of Education and of any of its committees that resulted in such formal action were in meetings open to the public in compliance with all legal requirements, including Section 121.22 of the Ohio Revised Code. That concludes the items that I have for your consideration at this moment.
Thank you, Mr. Smith, for reading that. We have a motion to accept this recommendation.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Clark, Mrs. Birding Miller? Any discussion? Any further comments? Remember, we need to keep these factual in nature. Mrs. Lane, call the roll, please.
Mr. Clark?
Yes.
Mrs. Birding Miller?
Yes.
Mrs. Shorter? Yes. Mr. Begley?
Yes.
Mr. Begley and members of the board, I have one more item for your consideration this evening. Number 5. Recommend the approval of the board resolution adopting the statement of facts and directing the superintendent and treasurer to implement the staff program and service reductions in the event the March 19, 2024 operating levy fails. The Board of Education was previously provided with this resolution, with a resolution. Board resolution adopting, in case you're wondering, this is the resolution that was distributed earlier this evening. Board resolution adopting the statement of facts and directing the superintendent and treasurer to implement the following staff program and service reductions in the event that the March 19, 2024 levy fails. Whereas, without the passage of the March 19, 2024 operating levy, the district will not have the necessary operating funds to maintain a positive cash balance as required by law. And whereas the district is not legally permitted to operate with a negative cash balance, and whereas the district is required to secure additional funding to maintain current programming and services, and whereas further budget reductions would significantly impact current services and programs because the district's cost per pupil already ranked second lowest in Butler County in fiscal year 2022, spending $2,412 less per pupil than the state average and $1,534 less than the average of similar districts. Whereas the last operating levy in November 2011 was projected to last 2 to 3 years, and the district has not sought an additional operating levy in 12-plus years. And whereas district local tax revenues do not increase proportionally with property value increases, and whereas the current state biennial budget does not project an increase for future years, and whereas based on the November 2023 five-year forecast, a 6.9 mil levy will allow the districts to substantially maintain the current programming and services for FCSD through June 30th, 2029, and whereas the 6.9 mil operating levy would generate $242 annually per $100,000 property value. Now, therefore, be it resolved that should the March 19, 2024 operating levy fail, the board directs the superintendent and treasurer to implement the following staff program and service reductions. Restructure the middle school schedules to eliminate 5 FTE teaching positions for an estimated cost savings of $313,000. Eliminate 4.5 FTE teaching positions at the freshman school and high school campus for an estimated cost savings of $282,000. Restructure the curriculum and instruction department to eliminate 3 FTE positions for an estimated cost savings of $188,000. Eliminate 1 administrative position for an estimated cost savings of $102,000. This is in addition to the 1 administrative position eliminated prior to the start of the 2023-2024 school year. Reduce transportation to state minimums with a cost savings estimate of $1.3 million. Be it further resolved that the board directs the superintendent and treasurer to implement the aforementioned reductions for the 2024-2025 school year, unless such reductions may be made sooner without displacing any staff member for the 2023-2024 school year. That concludes the items that I have for your consideration this evening.
Thank you again, Mr. Smith, for reading that. Point of clarification, Mrs. Lane, is this your motion and we need a second, or we need a first and a second?
We need a first and a second.
Thank you. I'll ask for a motion to accept these recommendations in a second.
So moved.
Second.
Mrs. Birding Miller, Mr. Clark, further discussion?
Yes, thank you for stating the facts that are accurate.
On the first page, I think it is a very important fact. Whereas district local tax revenues do not increase proportionally with property value increases. It's a factual statement that there won't be increased value of substantial meaning when the eventual property tax increases are placed upon the community that are currently being bounded about. Any other comments, questions? Mrs. Lane, please call the roll.
Mrs. Birding Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Clark?
Yes.
Mrs. Shorter? Yes. Mr. Begley?
Yes.